One. All right, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly in Review. We did miss last week, and I didn't expect as many people to be upset that we missed last week. I mean, it's not like it was a slow news week. There was stuff to talk about, but I think all of us were tired, to be honest. All of us were just like, we needed we all lost like a lot of money last week. So we're like, you know what? Let's just like relax. And there are a lot of comments saying, hey, where's the weekly review? Where's the weekly review? So we do know how seriously you guys take it, and we're going to try not to miss another week again. I'm here. Dom from Dominating Your Investments might be here soon. I'm here with Sachin and Chris. And there's a lot of big news to talk about Palantir in the week. But before we get there, I want to have a little bit of a quick discussion on what's going on in the markets and how Chris and Sachin are kind of navigating the situation. So let's start off with Chris. What are your thoughts on what's going on right now? We saw the S&P get to 36.5, which is the new low for the year. All of 2021 gains have been erased 6 months into 2022. So how are you navigating this right now?
To be honest with you, not much different than how I've been navigating over the last 6 months. I remember I told you guys like I was not going to be in tech for much, and I was just going to stay in energy because there was so much pent up demand for energy use. Energy did take a little bit of a hit today, but overall, that's one of the sectors that's been up for the last 6 months. I do see some level of activity starting to happen more on the US side when it comes to oil and natural gas, but it's not nearly enough capital that's being allocated to it to make any material difference. So I think we've still got a lot of pain to go. We could see oil hit 150, but I don't know. So right now, majority of my profile is hanging back in energy right now, and I'm just relaxing. I think there is a point where I am going to transition out of energy within the next maybe 90 days and then just go right back into growth tech, because a lot of great growth tech names have started to come down to the point where the risk is pretty much all gone. So it'd be smart to kind of go into the play before everyone else starts to get in. I know everyone's like, oh, are you trying to time the bottom? And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to time the bottom necessarily. I'm just trying to get in at a price that I feel is very fair. But I think we've still got some time to go. You know me, I've been telling you guys, like, I'm in the market to buy a house. So my plans have kind of been pushed back at least a couple of years. I do see a lot of price reductions coming, so I'm not sticking around. I'm not going to buy a house at the highest price with the highest interest rates out there. If I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to get a huge discount, right? So I'm like I said, I'm just waiting.
Sachin, how are you navigating? And we were also talking off camera what you think about the S&P levels. And so can you give some thoughts on where you see the S&P going over the next 90 days?
Hey, first, it's good to see both of you guys. So I was in an investor conference last week, and I was meeting like several investors, especially a lot of them from energy sectors in the region and a lot in the private equity. The my view, like with all the information that I've heard and all the companies that I'm working, is that we are probably going to see S&P level far lower than expected. Like, for example, I mean, if I take the average PE declines for S&P over the last 5 or 6 mid-tier kind of bear market in the last decade, it brings us back to the level of 3,200, 3,300. Now, what we are in is not like a small or like a mild recession or this is something similar to what happened in the dot-com time or what happened in the financial crisis. So there is going to be a panic, and I expect S&P to actually bring the levels below 3,000. That's my view. I could be wrong. And I will not be surprised if S&P goes and tests levels between 2,600 and 2,900. Now, what does it mean for Nasdaq? Now, Nasdaq has declined slightly more or relatively more compared to S&P. Now, this is one thing everyone has to understand, that what has changed since the financial crisis. There is much more passive investment. Now, when you invest in indexes are volume weighted. That means a company that has higher volume, they always get the more money, and this is causing the divergence in index because the volume weight for different companies are different. So if it plays out, there is a fair chance that the decline in Nasdaq could be even severe than what we are expecting in S&P. How it happens and what level it goes, it definitely requires intervention at some point of time. The normal tools of intervention for Feds are uh, reduce the interest rate or increase liquidity. And we both know, I mean, we all know that that is not going to happen at this particular point. So Fed and the US administration is out of sources. Another way to reduce inflation is that you give a shock to the system. That means suddenly say the oil price and energy prices are so high that you suddenly start seeing a real demand destruction. That means people are forced, because right now there are no inventories. You need to have more supplies than demand at some point of time to actually ease it down. So whether it's manufacturing, suppliers, bottleneck in supply chains, energy, the demand is actually still way above than the supply is. So that thing has to go down until and unless, I mean, inflation will just keep kicking in. So how I'm navigating, I'm staying in cash, what cash I have, what I'm invested. Like all of you know that all of my public equity investment is in Palantir. So I'm holding that position. I'm not selling any covered calls at this level. I have a cash, some cash in hand.
One second, Sachin. Amit, can you let Dom in? Send him
Yeah,
the
I
link.
just
Oh,
sent
there
the
you
link.
go.
I sent the link. Yeah.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
So-
Sorry about Sachin. Go ahead.
So my plan at this particular point is that as soon as I finish my projects, most likely by July, August, I mean, I want to watch until that time. And from that point, I'll mostly open like a more covered call based uh, account for tech investing. So
Sachin, do you see oil going to 120 or 100?
I mean, I'm seeing in parabolic moves, is oil breaching of 150 and 180.
So you think it's going up, oil?
It is holding above 100. That means the pressure is upward. 100 is very expensive oil. 120 is very expensive oil, but it is holding. And at this particular point, even the oil is at $120. There is no ease in supply. Supply is still tight. So the until and unless, I mean, somehow Biden managed to charm Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi. Okay, I don't see any other way. Oil
What
has.
about demand destruction? Like if there is a recession and people stop taking flights and going on vacation, then could that help with reduced
So
oil?
demand destruction has three steps. Okay, first demand destruction. The first step of demand destruction is when people start complaining of high prices. This is what we are in today. The second step of demand destruction is like when their people start reducing how much they are actually consuming oil. That hasn't happened yet. The third step of demand destruction is when the economy goes down, people don't even have money to spend. So we have to go into the step 2 and the step 3 yet, which has not happened. So at this particular point, there is no demand destruction.
There's one thing I would just want to add real quick. I know some of the people in the comments section, they were like, why are you guys talking about oil? Why are you guys talking about the economy? I thought this was the Palantir podcast. Why don't you talk about Palantir? Right? I get that. And a lot of people think that everything is always about investing in just the company. Well, you also have to look at the macro picture too, because if you don't look at the macro and you only focus on the company, literally you'll get killed. Like I understand the logic behind, oh yeah, we should just focus on this one little company who's doing that, but the rest of the market affects it. If oil prices go up and all these companies stop spending money on other things like software because of it and their margins are being compressed, that directly affects Palantir's ability to grow, right? So yes, sometimes I know that people are like, why are you guys talking about the macro level stuff? You don't just talk about Palantir on this podcast. Well, guess what? It all correlates. Even big tech names right now, Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, all of them are down almost 40, 50%, regardless whether they're good companies and they're doing business or not. So yeah, so you should be focusing on the macro. Anyone that tells you don't focus on the macro, only focus on the company is a complete idiot, and you shouldn't take any investing advice from them. Not that we're giving any investing advice in the first place. So back to you guys.
Also, we have a oil and gas consultant for the past 25 years, so it's really nice to get his thoughts on what's going on. Dom, hello, happy you are here. Dom, I'll ask you the question, then we'll get into Palantir. How have you been doing this past week with the market?
Yeah, I've been doing okay. I mean, obviously you get, still drawing down. I haven't added or disposed cash. I'm building my position up. I think we have more pain to endure. Me and Sachin were talking about this earlier on Twitter. I think that the NASDAQ can still go lower. I don't see a positive catalyst that would change otherwise. The only immediate positive catalyst I could see would be the war in Ukraine and Russia. If that somehow had peace talks and ended, that would help. Or if China and supply chain really was fixed and fully open. But overall, I just think there's too many things impacting the macro. So we will, until we, I think someone said earlier, until we really feel the pain and see things bottom out to where we'll have people, you'll have people out of jobs, but yet prices will still be high. And then once we get into that point of recession, I think that's when people will get back into growth. So not that I'm trying to, or not that I think I'll get the bottom, but I think that we just have enough more pain to go through that I'm not going to be so over anxious. I've learned that, to Chris's point, I've been way too over anxious. I mean, I'm no financial expert, man. I'm just like everyone else. And I've only done, I used to always do index funds, SPY, for 11 years straight. And it was easy. I didn't have to think about it. But then I found this love for individual stocks and wanted to really try to set myself up so I could retire earlier, and thought I had everything figured out. And I was at like 3x my money in 2 years. And then this past year happened, and the market made me wake up and realize who's in control. So you don't have to rush into all your positions. And that was something that FOMO of, this is the lowest. I mean, we talked about this before. I never thought Palantir would get to $7, man. Never. If you were to bet me, I was like, no, that'll never happen. And a lot of that comes down to what Chris alluded to earlier, was when everything's good, you feel like you don't have to pay attention to the macro. We had 0% interest rates, economy's booming, everyone's flooding, money in with SPACs and technology growth. But when things are bad, you have to understand that it does matter about the macro, even if your company is good as Palantir or others, because it will take everything down regardless. So sorry for the long answer there. I admit.
No, you're good.
One of the good things that I think that is going to happen is that Palantir has always said that they're built for times like this. Now, one of the things that I really appreciate about the management is that, number one, they went public during a time when things were at a higher valuation. So right now their balance sheet is rock solid, right? They issued shares, they hired employees, their RSU strategy now looks genius because you were able to hire so many employees, with pretty much giving them overinflated shares, right? So right now, Palantir in
Why is
terms
that
of
genius, Chris?
so think about it this way. If I am compensating you with, Palantir at $25 a share, right? And then Palantir drops to $7, guess what? That money that I gave to you, I got work out of you for $25 when technically right now it's worth $7, right? So I pretty much got all the work done at a discount
And now
compared
you're
to
going to
what
stay
was.
because you don't want to leave until it
Right.
gets back.
Right. Exactly. So now you're kind of like in there. So one of the cool things about Palantir right now is while all these other tech companies are laying people off, Palantir is actually hiring, right?
Yeah.
They're actually expanding. And this is one of the things that Karp spoke about during one of the interviews, and saying my biggest worry was that I would have good employees be poached away by all these other little companies that are coming around, like VC funded little companies, and poach away like really good employees, or I wouldn't be able to hire really good employees. Right now, because Palantir has a good balance sheet, they're actually able to expand out and actually get these people. So right now, you guys are seeing all over the place layoffs happening at Coinbase, at Uber, at Lyft, and blah, blah, blah. So all these tech companies, as they're laying off, Palantir is like, no, now we get the pick of the litter in terms of employees. So that's going to be a
what
big
me and
positive.
Coach Strap were talking about. I have a episode to edit and post. We spoke for a long time, and that was one of the things he highlighted was now is the time they're going to start. They know they have their eyes on the talent that they want, and now as those LinkedIn profiles start changing, they're going to be scooping up people and also too coming in at, if anyone's done their homework on this company and you look at it at $7-8 a share, and you're getting a lot of stock-based compensation, you're going to be really happy to coming in at that price point.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to the biggest news of the week. Palantir and Google have launched a collaboration. This is official. Google Cloud CEO did a little short video promotion with Shyam Sankar, COO of Palantir. And essentially, the Google Cloud Marketplace is going to be offering Foundry to be built on top of it. The sort of way I interpret this is that it's a multi-channel sales distribution for Palantir to access all of the GCP clients. And Google, in launching this collaboration, is not just like putting their logo on the App Store, because you could always do that on the Google Cloud Marketplace App Store, but rather they're saying, hey, we're co-signing this product as one of the premier products that can integrate with their operational workflows on top of GCP's main compute layer. So really, really interesting stuff, exciting stuff. We saw this happen a couple months ago where there was this like leaked image of Google recommending Palantir to clients. Obviously, it was in the works. And I want to have a lot of sort of perspectives on the bear case I'm seeing on this, which is Google's just trying to poach all their information and eventually they'll get rid of them, and sort of the bull case of this and what this means for growth in the future. So Sachin, let's start with you. What is your take on Google and Palantir?
So I think one thing which everyone has to be very clear on this part is that at this point, the war of hyperscaler is more between the big three, which is the AWS, Microsoft, and Google. When I discuss with companies that has partnered with the Google Cloud in a strategic way, I mean, they really love the product. They said that they liked, and they, in their assessment, Google Cloud technically is superior to both AWS and Amazon. Now, the challenge is, because most of my clients are in energy sector, and Google is very sensitive when it comes to provide continuing service or all the technology to oil and gas companies. So a lot of them are pivoting with the lack of support from Google. And when they are going to AWS and Microsoft, they realize that it's pain, and they are coming up, but they are not at the same level when it comes for pure performance. But where they excel is the go-to-market. That means they are more flexible, they are more ready to sit with you and to work with you. So clients are ready to work with Microsoft and AWS despite the product is bit inferior. So Google is actually struggling in B2B market in terms of growth relative to these two companies. They have a better product, okay? And the only way Google can increase their consumption and their usage if they start tackling the use cases which no one else is tackling at this point. It is also important that Google probably has one of the best knowledge graph map solution other than Palantir. Yet Google decided to go with Palantir, which says that the kind of solution Palantir is harnessing is actually built for very complex case that Google itself feel that, okay, it's better to have Palantir on board and let's take Palantir to the clients, tackle these high-end customization and complex use cases so that we can increase our consumption. Google sees Palantir as a hack at this particular point to increase its consumption and client base. And that is the key message coming out of it. We have discussed in past that which of the big tech is more positioned to compete with Palantir, and more often the name of Google will come ahead of AWS and Microsoft. Now Google is coming here, and not only Google is doing it, I mean, they are actively promoting it, which is telling it's not like this, okay, I want 20 partnerships, so Palantir is also one. They are saying this is a key partnership. So they are positioning themselves that we see Palantir as a hack, and they are telling their customers. And you see, even from ideological point of view, what Alex Karp says about Silicon Valley. I mean, ideological point of view, Palantir and Google are very different companies. Every criticism that Alex Karp make of Silicon Valley is directed towards Google. And yet, I mean, these two companies are coming together in a strategic context, in a commercial sense. It's a very big statement, in my opinion.
What's the benefit to Google? I guess I'll frame this question. Sachin, you can give your thoughts on that, and then Chris, you can go. What's the benefit to Google doing this? Like, how does it help them?
So the benefit, see, for example, I have a better product, and I go to my client and I say my product is better than Microsoft. The client says, so what? What we want to get it done, though it's pain, but Microsoft can also do it, AWS can also do it. The only way you are going to prove your product is superior and extract value out of it, that you start doing use cases which these two companies are not doing, or they don't have partner ecosystem to do it. So Google is taking Palantir because they want to take the game to the next level. So we are going to solve things which nobody else is solving. There is no other point for Google to partner with Palantir. I mean, Palantir, with even before this partnership, you can use Palantir on Google. It's not Palantir was banned on Google. They are saying, so the only, see, they are, Azure started behind Google in cloud. Okay, AWS was already ahead. Google had a better product, but Azure, despite an inferior product related to these two companies and mostly in relative term and starting from behind, right now it is the fastest growing B2B cloud in hyperscaler at this point. And a company like Google, it's not something they can easily take. The only way they can change it, so Google DNA is very simple. We try things which nobody else tries. Microsoft DNA is different. Microsoft is we commoditize things, but we see everyone else is working and we commoditize as fast as possible. Okay, like for example, if you take how when Google introduced Google Workspace, right from the starting, they focus very much on collaborative working. Office 365 adopted it far later when they saw, okay, Google is doing it, let's commoditize it. So this is a very different DNA of companies we are talking about. The only way Google can change the tide for its cloud performance if the client says, okay, this can only be done on Google. Okay, Google has one of the, I mean, everyone knows, even Elon Musk admits they have one of the best AI in the market. Okay, they have a very good knowledge map of themselves. Okay, now something like Palantir coming in, that means they can tackle the courses, they can tackle the complexities which a lot of companies cannot. And another thing is like Google also has a lot of lobbying power. And people don't realize that Google has more lobbying power than Exxon at this particular point. I mean, Exxon lobbying is nowhere near to what Google can do at this particular point. So they can influence a lot of decisions, a lot of policy making that can eventually help them. And you know, also like this whole idea around the ESG, because like, you remember the GCP was very sensitive when it comes for the working with defense and all these things in past. That was a popular way of doing things. I don't think people are very okay having that kind of attitude right now. So the Google and Palantir coming together, it is giving a lot of credibility to Palantir and what Palantir does. Google is not saying, okay, they said, okay, oil and gas is evil, will not give all the services to oil and gas directly. I mean, they made a statement about it, their AI will not be available or some of the technologies will not be available to the oil and gas. If they see Palantir as an evil company, they will not do a strategic partnership. So these are like two opposite poles in terms of ideology, and this is how they have been positioned by Wall Street and Silicon Valley and extreme left Democrats. But if these coming together, they were already working together. They can work together. That was already in place. They are saying, if we work together in unison, we can do things which others cannot do. So that's to me is the major statement.
Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Sachin. All the points that he made were pretty much right along what I was thinking. The way that I would phrase it, though, is that I would say the name of the game is compute. Google is a money-making organization. Okay, so if you're a money-making organization, you cannot turn away clients. No matter how ideological you are, guess what? You're a business. Question is, how do you maintain your ideological, persona without getting your own hands dirty? Well, you work with someone who already has their hands dirty, right? If you look at Palantir, already works with oil and natural gas companies, right, all over the world. It works with the defense department. Now, guess what? Those defense contracts are huge, right? No one's saying like, hey, I don't want money, but Google's like, okay, look, if I don't partner with Palantir, Microsoft will partner with Palantir and they'll sell the government all this compute, right? They'll send the defense. Do you know how much money is compute and how high of a margin that is? So right now, all three of the major cloud providers, they're all jockeying for Palantir to be partnered with them because they want Palantir to say, oh yeah, you should use Google Cloud as your compute, or you should use Microsoft Azure as your compute, or, at the end of the day, it's still the decision of the client on which compute that they want to go with. But Palantir is in a much better position right now. So all the contracts that Palantir gets that we hear oh, Palantir got $1 billion contract with blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Palantir is going to give you software, but there's also going to be a lot of compute that's attached to all that money that's being generated by that SaaS product. So who gets that? Who gets that revenue? Who gets that compute revenue? Well, now Google at the end of the day, like I said, Google needs money. And who better right now? Because Google right now is probably scared to death that one, Azure's taking away their business. Amazon is strengthening themselves and they're getting, they're taking away some of the business, right? From Google Cloud. And Google Cloud has pretty much hobbled themselves away in a corner saying, oh yeah, there are certain people we won't work with. But the ones that we are working with, like other tech companies, bro, half of them are going out of business, right? They're not going to be paying for compute. If all these tech companies that Google's partnered with for the last 5 years, if half of them are VC backed, if that VC money gets turned off, guess what? That compute is gone. And if that compute is gone, Google's got to make up for that revenue somewhere. The one thing that Google does not want to do right now is report a quarter over quarter or year over year net reduction in revenue. And it's already happening. I spoke to a few people in New York, where there's tons of market. What do you think every company right now, what's the first thing they're going to start cutting in a higher rate environment if their business is not doing well? The first thing that goes is marketing, right?
Ads,
what is Google?
Baby.
Yeah. What does Google make money off of? It makes money off of ads. So guess what? If they can somehow supplement some of that income by selling more compute, that ends up saving them some pain in the long run. So yeah, right now, if you look at a lot of companies whose entire business model is based on ads, during the recession, they're going to take huge hits. And Google doesn't want to get caught up on the end of that.
So question for everybody here. A lot of interesting chat going on. And I don't know why my comments, it never lets me enter anything in the chat. Maybe I'm doing something wrong when I click the link that you guys send me sometimes, but everyone puts in the chat and I want to join in the comments section. With Teal being very specific on how he feels about Google, and Karp has hinted at what he's felt about Google and those companies that do business with other countries and not justifying why they don't do stuff with the US government. I wonder, with this partnership, is Foundry going to be able to be accessible to other countries that normally they wouldn't sell directly to?
So let me answer that, because I have discussed this thing in past with Palantir, at least verbally, because whenever I have a discussion with them to build some strategic alliances with in different roles, so I ask the same question, how does it work? Okay, so the answer I got, and now this is I'm quoting what I or paraphrasing what I heard from them directly. Okay, their official statement could be different. Is, see, there are few countries, they are very specific, they are not going to work. End of story. Okay, it doesn't mean they cannot. If the clients wants to work or provide services indirectly without coding Foundry or technologies within those countries, or there might be a solution for that. But handing over technologies, bringing technologies to these countries are not possible. Okay, I don't think it is a setback in a way. The reason is, if you see what has happened in China, a lot of Silicon Valley companies has actually compromised their positions when going into China, but China still harbored their own valley, their own tech giants. Okay, and the ambition of China is not to harbor these tech giants in China. The idea is to take it outside. We don't talk about Alibaba Cloud or Alipay, but I live in Southeast Asia. Okay, we don't see China as US sees China or India sees China. Okay, if you go to, if I take a walk outside my house, most of the apartments that are being bought in my locality are bought by people in Hong Kong. Okay, so China has a very different. So for example, and when you see the emerging market, the growth in ASEAN, the growth in India, the growth in Middle East that is coming in, they don't see China, or they are not keeping China as a pariah like US does. Okay, so making a strategic decision not working in these countries to actually capture the other market is it's a strategic choice, and in the current scenario it is paying. And one of the reasons they did it, because they wanted to make a very clear distinction that allows them to access some of the most critical defense business. Okay. Also, I mean, what we have seen in past, that not bringing their technology. I mean, you talk to people who actually bring their technologies to China. You actually literally have to submit all the details related to it. If I need to bring a tool for logging, I have to submit like a lot of the schematics. So IP protection is a key issue. So I don't see that as a concern. There is one thing I do see as a concern is that they have created an opportunity for them, but they are not capturing it at that well. So the execution for me is a far bigger concern than the opportunity that is presented in the market to them at this time. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Cameron. You used my phone for the comment section.
Or just open up another YouTube tab on.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Need to mention one number. So last year. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Sachin. Go ahead.
Okay, last year, Azure growth on year on public cloud provider adoption rates in their organization and new organization was 60% more than Google, and it was actually higher, little tad higher than AWS. So Google, if they manage to increase 60% of their adoption rate, they will meet Microsoft of last year. So Google and Google is in real spot of bother at this point, as Chris mentioned earlier, that they are missing a lot of growth in the cloud and hyperscaler market at this point. They are not competing with Palantir at this time. Their focus is the Azure and AWS and the existential crisis that comes from them. Back to you guys.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this is the world I play in working at VMware, so I know all the three big hyperscalers, and Google's definitely not growing as fast. Just find it interesting as far as what version of Foundry is it? Is it the full version? Are they just using the compute to power it? One of the things that I had a great conversation with Coach Strap was, when you get Foundry, it enables you to choose what stuff you would even want in a particular hyperscaler. So if I have stuff already in GCP or Azure and AWS, I can pump, or Snowflake, I could pump those pipelines straight into Foundry, and I can, from there, I would build everything net new in Foundry. So all my metadata would be all there, and there's no need to pay those additional compute costs and cloud computing. So I think that hopefully answers the question I think Cameron was asking, was, yes, they're going to pump that information in, but you're not going to, if you have a choice of, do I want to build this on Google's cloud, or do I want to build this on my own environment, depending on what your compute infrastructure is like and what your budget is, that's going to determine a lot of that. I did think it was really cool that both Google and Palantir made a big deal about this on their website. And on the Palantir website, they're already fleshing out stuff talking about how Google Cloud and Palantir are going to market to solve industry-specific challenges. That's so important, because that is where they've started to make these networking effects. You saw it with Skywise. You're going to see it with, I'm going to butcher it again. Someone was saying on my video, Trafigure. I can't say it.
I think that's
yeah. It's so, yeah. You know what I'm talking about. There you go. And then also with Rubicon for waste management. So you look at all these larger organizations, and Stellantis for auto, EV, etc. If they hit these markets, and when I was talking to Code Strap, he was talking about how you can have these Foundry archetypes, these frameworks that you have for specific industries. And once you've figured out that framework and what a customer needs and really get it tailored perfectly, then all of a sudden you can just, that breeds networking effects. More contractors will use it, more partners will use it. And you look at all these large organizations that touch many other global companies like Airbus did or does, that can really breed serious network effects, serious contracts that looks like they have two two cases already. They already have two use cases for financial services and retail for Google Cloud. So I think that's encouraging that they're being very strategic about it.
There's one thing I would like to add. I think this is what is not apparent. See, Google has one of the best AI in the market. But if you see the Google AI usage in the B2B and industrial sector, I mean, they don't exist that many. So having a good AI is one thing, but having access to the data to feed to that AI and training is a whole different story. So Google has a piece of puzzle which is better than the rest of the market, but they are not able to deploy at scale. They are very good of using their AI for their internal purposes. Okay, but they have not been successful to commercialize at a level where they want it, because the data in the industry or in the client is not managed as Google is managing their own data. I mean, Google tagline is "We manage world's data." That's how, I mean, so they are managing their data, and access this data to train AI and to deploy a solution is a different thing. But when they are taking this solution to the clients, they see it's a whole different story. And this is why the piece of Palantir is very important for them. Back to you guys.
So one thing that I'm glad you guys didn't talk about, but I have maybe some a little bit of insider knowledge, and I don't know if Dom can confirm this or not. But the one thing that I've started to know in the industry is that the on-prem stuff is completely being ignored, and a lot of companies are moving stuff back on-prem because they're like, why are we paying all this money for this compute when the price of storage has gone down so much, the price of compute has gone down so much, and we can just do a bunch of VMs and provide the same level of services, load all the client apps that we have internally, manage the damn thing ourselves, instead of having to get all this extra money that we're just throwing into a dumpster fire, right?
But isn't it easier to just use AWS? Like, isn't that
no?
Well, it depends on the skill sets in your staffing. It's very specific to what you have as an IT group. Yeah. So to Chris's point, what I'm seeing in the industry is critical infrastructure is being brought back from the cloud to on-prem. You need to protect your critical infrastructure. There's so many, I mean, you just don't understand how much cyber warfare goes on every day that we don't see nation state attacks. And so your critical infrastructure is coming back on-prem. You're using things to control with applications, locking those down. And then what you can't afford to be flexible in the cloud, you do. There are others that do have big IT teams and are trying to limit those growth costs that get so exponential. Like, for instance, Lyft got so big on their AWS bill that they had to pay a $300 million clause or negotiation to say, hey, we're going to keep growing, but you can't keep exponentially growing our contract at this rate, right? Let's lock this down. And so, and I asked Coach Strap about that. I said, so are you saying once someone really gets their claws into you, like AWS or Azure, that it's really hard to move those apps out of the cloud? Like, I've heard that, but I want to hear it from a developer face to face. And he said, oh, it's hard as hell. And so I was like, okay. So that's when I was like, well, are people going to take their AWS stuff and move it to Foundry? And he said, nope, they're going to just open up a nice little data pipeline, send it in, and everything else from there gets built on Foundry, because Foundry and Palantir in itself is a security first business. Mm-hmm. And so that was just like, okay, yep, that makes sense to me.
And that goes especially in the business that I'm in. I'm in healthcare IT. I can tell you right now, we have to be, the number of attacks that we get regularly is crazy. So the thing is, why would we trust a cloud provider? If there's any compromise of that cloud provider, it compromises our entire system. So we have our own on-prem solution that we naturally have built out. We have a backup data center, and then we have a cloud provider that's doing anything that we personally feel that's not necessarily needs to be super secure. So right now, there's a lot of solutions out there, and that's why the really big partnership, to hell with the Google partnership, like that's great, that's nice to see. I always thought was the IBM partnership with Palantir, because IBM is specifically geared towards that. When IBM acquired Red Hat, right, That was the reason why, because you want to have a position in the industry, especially with Palantir. Palantir is going to win regardless whether you go on-prem, whether you go IBM, whether you go Google, you go Microsoft, any of the cloud providers or any of the service providers. Palantir wins, right? That's the way that Foundry is supposed to be set up. So if anyone's interested, look up something called Sky Compute, because that's what this is, right? It's no longer the cloud business. This is the next generation, which is Sky Compute, basically. So now you can kind of tailor you can build an application that's going to run on multiple clouds, and then do your business processes that way. Or you can do some of the stuff internally and then use the other clouds also. So yeah, and the thing is, Palantir specifically is geared towards that, because you know who has some of the biggest on-prem infrastructure? Department of Defense, the US, the government. Most government stuff is on a super secure cloud. What is that thing called? Cloud that they have internally. That's actually covered by the government. They're not necessarily wanting to outsource everything to the other cloud providers. So if you have like classified networks and stuff, guess who has the best experience in working with on-prem clouds that are super secure? Well, Palantir. So that's where they will win. And this is where companies like Databricks and Snowflake also come in too, because they provide services like this, but no one as robust as Palantir, as far as I can tell.
I got another question. See where this goes. First of all, shout out to 158 people, 11:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Listening to four guys who are down a lot of money on this stock, try to justify why it's okay. Really appreciate it. First of all, everyone's Twitter is in the description. Highly, highly, highly recommend. First of all, if you're not on Twitter, to make a Twitter account, because Elon Musk is going to take it to 1 billion users apparently. So you might as well be part of that billion. Second of all, follow all of us there, because we're all constantly tweeting about Palantir in the market. And there's a lot of different stuff from Sachin. You get oil and gas stuff from Chris. You get mortgage stuff from Dom. You get a bunch of his different videos he's putting out around Palantir. And from me, you get some memes occasionally. So definitely all follow us there. Now, here's the question I got to ask. I'm going to have Chris go first. Will Google buy Palantir?
No, never will happen.
First of all, Google's $1 trillion company. Palantir's a measly little $15 billion company. So
that's exactly why Google, Palantir has the founder shares that give them super majority in terms of voting. If right now Google could come in and buy every single share outstanding of Palantir, and guess what? Peter Thiel can say, "Go kick rocks," and they'd have to suck it up. Can't do anything. Yeah. So pretty much no. Google, even if Google wanted to or someone else wanted to, they couldn't. Whether that's good for investors or not can be kind of subjective, because right now, if someone says to me, "Oh yeah, you know what? We'll buy your Palantir shares for you for $30 a share," I'd be the first one to raise my hand. Go right ahead. I got a shit ton of Palantir
$30
shares.
$30 you would cash out? You're done?
Bro, I'd be up so much right now because I've been DCAing the entire time. You know, if you're telling me I could get a huge win right now, I take it, you know, and especially if I could take that money and put it into some of the other things that are out there. So yeah.
Okay, Sachin, your thoughts? Would Google ever buy Palantir?
See, Google will never buy Palantir. The reason for that is, some of you have actually seen the .com, and if you remember the 1998 antitrust case that was against Bill Gates. So all the big companies and all the new upcoming companies have asked this question: how to avoid that moment for us. Okay. Now, if you see like Google and Facebook, Meta, they went into this kind of group structuring. They have a additional CEO sometime coming from outside to save themselves that kind of situation. The whole, like Chris mentioned, the whole idea of founders' share was built around it, so that the control of the company can be decided by 2 or 3 people. Whether it's good or bad, it can only be decided with time, because if they take the decisions in a way that destroy the shareholder value, then it's bad. Okay. And to be fair, if you say, despite all the love I have for Palantir, we also have to be very clear that Palantir is now like 18, 19 years old company, or at least 18 years old company that started at the same time as Facebook and nowhere near the same valuation. Okay. So where the criticism is due, in a if the company would have been controlled by investors, I believe it has already been acquired by someone. Okay,
Yeah.
so the only reason it's not been acquired because of the control that founders have on it, and they need to justify it by turning this company in next few years 100 to 100 million dollar. If it doesn't reach that point, okay, I would say that this founder share structure has actually destroyed value for shareholders. And I agree with Chris. Money today on table is always better than money in future.
I'll give my thoughts real quick before Dom. I also think that just the value of a Palantir, not working with Russia, China, the philosophical values, all the shots they've taken at Google, Peter Thiel obviously not liking. I mean, like, it would be really hard to justify them with their founder shares. Be like, yeah, we'll take a $30, $40 premium, especially not only because they philosophically don't align with Google, but because Karp has said this company should be 20 times bigger. And he doesn't strike me as a guy who gives up on his ambitions just because the market has turned down. In fact, I think he's excited that the market has turned down because he's literally said, we're happy that this is, our moment to shine. So I do think.
So then why isn't he buying some shares, bro? If he thinks it's going to be 20 times bigger.
I don't know about that. Anthony Noto, he's buying a lot. He's SoFi. He's gobbling them up every day. Dom, what are your thoughts on Google and Palantir?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen because anything can happen. Is it likely or probable? No, not in my opinion, based on the share structure and based on the even just what like you would lose from an employee count. That would be a big sellout for the employees to see that happen when they have a specific niche culture that they've fostered, and each division and team of engineers are so empowered on these massive, important projects. That wouldn't necessarily be the case if they got bought out by Palantir or by Google.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that was the main Palantir for the news for the week. Was there anything else that was super big in Palantir world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I haven't seen anyone cover the Dresner study. It is a 200-page study, and that's probably why no one's covered it. But go ahead.
Did you do any research on it? I looked at it. It's fluff. To be honest with you, it's a lot of fluff.
It's not fluff. It's
fluff.
In the BI world, it's an industry respected report, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Which guess what? Palantir commissioned. So
what do you mean?
Palantir's this wasn't an independent thing that just randomly they did a report. They specifically did this for Palantir. They said, okay, yeah, go ahead, compare us to the other things. So a lot of the stuff that was in there was, geared towards saying why Palantir is such a great company, which is okay. I mean, a lot of companies do it. Like, imagine right now me saying to you, hey, Amit, I'll pay you $100 if you tell the world how great I am. That's pretty much what it was.
Great. He's phenomenal.
There you go.
I love Chris.
The most important part in that report is, and this is important to actually expose the hypocrisy that Wall Street media has for it. You remember that Jim Cramer has made in the statement, I will invest in Palo Alto instead of Palantir. So he was comparing Palo Alto with Palantir. He was treating Palantir more as a cybersecurity company. See, there is no mention of Palo Alto in this report. It's BI report. And what people are missing is that you compare Palantir in BI category, you compare Palantir in terms of cybersecurity. So what the heck this company is doing there? It is present in all these layers. And if you accept that, then there is a power of integration. And this is what the Wall Street actually don't cover at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away with the interview that I'm going to post for Code Strap, but we were on camera for an hour and we were off camera for 2.5. I could talk his ear off. I learned so much from this guy. He really opened my eyes to the differentiations on what Foundry truly is when you start looking at the different layers, as you're talking, Sachin, and the modules and the way they approach the technology, even from the developer perspective, differently than other companies. And then putting the security first premise on everything that they do. I told him, I said, I've been too hard on them going so fast to accelerate like Snowflake in sales motion and go to the mid-market and rush in and get more customers, because what they're really doing is focusing on industries building those Foundry archetypes. And then once you cascade that and you get the networking effects in that industry, you can start conquering it, and other people in that industry will have to conform or they will be left behind.
But Dom, I'll just hit on one point on that specific thing. The technology is great, and I do understand the approach to being security first, but I have seen on so many levels how sometimes being security first can drag you so pretty much like it takes much longer for adoption to happen to the point where competitors can come and eat away. So an example is BBM, right? You guys ever use BlackBerry? Anyone here use BlackBerry? I'm sure that everyone had BlackBerry in 2008. BBM was the most secure way of communicating. World leaders used BlackBerries to communicate. Why? Because they had end-to-end security, and BBM was super secure. Great thing. But guess what? Because they were security first, they could not out-innovate Apple in bringing something that was more mass market, right? So I think what it is you have to be security first, but be security first where it matters. And then if you don't have to be security first, don't be security first in that specific thing. Tailor it to the mass market. So I think that was always one of the reasons why I always advocate the Palantir pretty much divides themselves into super secure government business, federal with all the stuff that they have. And on the other side, a commercial business that focuses on maximizing commercial adoption. Because if they don't
real debate, because we actually have a debate now.
No, I mean, it's always good to debate a little.
No, debate's healthy. I love it. I'm sure the viewers like it. So what I would say is secure first in the world that we live in needs to be in commercial and government, period. Totally get what you're saying, because I've worked in the security business for a very long time, that if you design your security framework in a way, it can actually slow people down. It can lose progress. It can not allow short, reduced time to value. But after learning how Palantir does their security in Foundry and do things differently, once you've gotten on board, I truly believe they have a 10x differentiation when it comes to security, and that they can, and the fact that they have all the abilities to do the data pipelines into whatever apps you have today, I don't think you would have that necessarily slow down. I think the ramp up of the initial deployment would be the slowest piece. And actually the part of that is the slowest is when you do the data pipelines ins, you are still dependent on that IT admin or that person who owns the data to allow you to turn that on and feed that data into Foundry. So at that point, depending on how big your organization is, if it's like a big or like BP, that could be like weeks, months even. Whereas if it's a smaller organization, that could happen very quickly. So I get what you're saying, because yes, security in a lot of areas can slow things down. That's why you always have security and developers butting heads all the time. But I mean, when you just, I don't know, I know you guys have done some interviews with Coach Ram, and I just, my mind was blown when he started just talking about how the design of how they approach containers and Kubernetes and everything else. Like they definitely, they know what they're doing from a technology standpoint. Now it goes to execution, which all four of us have talked about. How do you get that message out there? And I'm hoping this Google partnership will start to do that.
Yeah, and I just want to say the reason why I'm saying the security piece is because some industries value security way more than other industries, right? If you're working in an industry that's very mature, there's really not much IP that you have to deal with, it's not really who of you to care about security as much. There are basic security features that you always want have built in, but just like you said, it ends up hindering developers from doing their job and actually adding to the cost. So they're like, look, I don't need all this federal, I don't need the same level of security as you need for the federal government to get, F certified, like IP6 certified. Just get me what I need to get done,
And
so that's
Foundry does that, right? Foundry does that. When you, he said he's going to have a lot more demos coming, and Foundry does enable developers very well to keep through their CI/CD pipelines and building their code fast and not being slowed down to where they have to go to the security teams and get things fixed.
I want to ask
I can speak on behalf of oil and gas industry. I mean, we don't it will be wrong to say that we care about security. We are paranoid about security, actually. Okay, I have seen people. I mean, they go into these workshops, and some of the best companies will explain them for 3 days, like why their platforms are secure, and these guys will come out of this workshop and they say, we are still not convinced. So in oil and gas, like for example, until few years back, nobody actually even knew that how much reserves Saudi Arabia has. Okay, what kind of porosity, permeability of a reservoir? People are really paranoid about securing their data in our industry, and especially like when the oil price nowadays is 100. I can tell you, like a lot of people, like they change job because they have seen things. Okay, and you I mean, like for example, if I have lived in an area, I have drilled wells in a certain geology. I mean, I know that. Okay, that's a knowledge that stays in my head. So oil and gas, mining, like especially resource based industries, the security is paramount. People can go to inferior products, and I agree with Chris also. Like you cannot bank too much, or you cannot, if you anchor too much on one pillar, you end up actually deteriorating something other. I think this is where the Dom, when Dom was mentioning, like so far what we have seen, that Palantir is trying to balance these pillars together. But we also have to acknowledge that Palantir at this point is not one of the best executing company as well. Okay, they're struggling to figure out like how they are going to make this massive product and value and actually take it. They have done some really good moves, okay, but they are not yet mass market company yet. I think that is the main hurdle, and that pretty much will define whether this stock is $25 or this stock is $250.
The one thing is their competitors, which is usually their own, like each company's own data science teams, haven't failed enough yet. What I mean by that is, if you're think of it this way, you're working at a company, right? You have a data science team. The data science team, they're part of your digital transformation, where they're telling you, hey, if you do this, this is the end results that you get. So if your goal is to get, let's say, 15% more customers next year, the data science team will tell you which areas, what you need to do to get there. So Palantir essentially, and this goes right back into, what does Palantir do? Well, Palantir takes all your data and helps you figure out how to do that. Well, a lot of companies, they look at the price of Palantir being in the millions of dollars, and they say, nah, man, we'll just hire our own data science folk. They have graduates from an MBA course, who have software background, and they'll code all the stuff, and they'll be able to give you the answer. Well, guess what? All of that stuff has to be put into certain softwares. So that's what Snowflake does, right? Like you take all the data, you put it in a columnar database, and you build applications around it. The thing is, though, all these people are going to fail. Okay, I think and that's what we have to go back to, and that's what Coach Strap was telling everyone. 80% of all data science applications, they fail. Palantir has a much, much higher success rate. So right now, after spending $10 million, I go back to my data science team and I say, hey guys, give me some, what should I do? And they're like, well, we spent all this money, but we may need to spend some more. I'll tell them to go F themselves and then go get Palantir. So Palantir has not been around long enough in this field commercially where they can say, look, your data science team is failing you. You need to get us so that we can make this better and, get you to the end product. The other thing is you need a lot of developers to kind of push for it. There's not too many developers that know about Palantir. I mean, yeah, the YouTube people like us, we talk about it.
The premium offer, right? Like I talked to that with Coach Strap, and he was like, I agree. I'm trying. He said, I'm trying to do my best to get the word out.
Holding it up for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if no one knows how to build on your platform, then yeah, you're not going to get the customers. Right now, that's why if you look at Apple, right, all the people that build on the Apple App Store, the environment, because they're like, look, we'll give you all the tools you need to become an Apple certified developer. We'll even build all the tools, the language. So that's what Palantir needs to do. It needs to get a vibrant developer community that's going to push their product out so that people are building applications on top of it. And same thing with, like, I really wish there was a freemium product that I could even go and demo to one of my colleagues, and just say, hey, listen, this is what I was able to do. Instead of doing half my job that I do on a goddamn spreadsheet, I have a much easier way through Palantir, right? And I can build an application. I could share this application with the entire organization. Right now, I swear to God, right now, guys, I spent half of my day doing spreadsheets, and my entire team thinks I'm a genius because I know how to do some formulas on a spreadsheet. What I would like to do is have a data pipeline already built and then just say, okay, let me show you in a low code way how to just drag, drop, and then build the application that you need so that you get all the data that you need. I can't do that for them for Excel. If I give them my Excel spreadsheet within probably a couple of days, they're like, oh, something messed up. I put something in the wrong location and it's gone. So
let me tell you why too. Like, just to piggyback off of what you said there, and I've been in that exact same situation. I've even done it in Power BI, and that's even more frustrating. They're getting continuous reduced time to value for the business when you have a living, breathing data ontology that can be manipulated to business outcomes and actually give you results and insights real time. You can't do that when you have Chris's spreadsheet and he needs to go share it with Sachin, and then he needs to look at it. He makes some edits, and Amit has to look at it. And you have all we need to have several board meetings. And if you can have it to where everyone has access to what they're supposed to have access to, and the consequential digital twin can actually tell you, if we make these decisions, these are the outcomes we will reach. That is when you see alpha. That is when you see we saved X amount of $1 million because of these decisions we were able to make that we would have never had the insights to do. And that, to me, is what excites me about Palantir.
So I agree with both of you. So guys, the catch is following. It all works in this way as long as we make an assumption that employees are working in the best interest of the organization. The B2B context is very complex. When you bring something new, people first see, okay, if I buy a new product, I'm actually going to jeopardize my existing relationship. People try to protect their relationships a lot. Okay. The second thing is people try to look back and think, okay, what will happen? Today, I have this much power in terms of appropriating funds, in terms of deciding things. If I increase the level of transparency, people will know exactly how I do things. So there is a power context, and this is why the B2B sale is very different. And this is exactly what happened, and Palantir has acknowledged in past is that they have made IT team adversarial the way they came up from a top-down selling bottom. Palantir's self-service capabilities are non-existent. Palantir communication with the developer community and engagement at best is like not even thin, it's like a decimal. Okay, these are two things they need to figure it out. Without this, they are never going to become a juggernaut they want to be. I think this is pretty much very simple. It is shame that I often talk about the companies that are very new and I like them. I mean, like one of the company I always mentioned about is Harness. I said these companies, Harness has a self-service product. I mean, for last 2 years. Okay, Palantir doesn't have a self-service product. Okay, so thing is, people will, if they cannot test your product, if they cannot go and enroll to your product online, then they depend on your sales team. Sales team was also non-existent until last year. So how the hell people reach Palantir? I mean, there is no sales team. I mean, like last year we saw that.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think anyone's fighting you on that. I think that's what
like 9 people who had a tenure more than 9 months, or 12 people, something like that. You don't have a self-service product. How people reach Palantir? What amazes me, and I think this is a sad part, but what amazes me that people who actually reach Palantir and who use Palantir, they are completely in awe of solution.
So Sachin, there is someone in our in the chat right now who actually uses Foundry. I think the name Matt Money. Matt, would you be down to come on to this chat? I think
Matt's been down. Matt's been down to come on. He's probably going to come on. We should schedule it soon for him.
Yeah. Sorry, Sachin. Sorry to interrupt, but I keep seeing that, and I was like, because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, he actually has experience with, which he could probably give us better context.
He uses it every day in the oil and gas industry. He's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think one thing which people are not trying to learn enough is that why Palantir revenue per client is far bigger than any of its peers. Okay, I think this is a puzzle I think more people need to look into and solve, because you cannot get more money from a client if you're not creating the value. So what is this value that Palantir is creating that their peer even working together is not able to create? And this is actually this is one of the biggest bull theses I have about Palantir is that Palantir can enable use cases and solutions. Like for example, I mean, I know in the case of BP, I mean, BP downstream is on Azure and upstream is on AWS, or maybe it's other way around. But they use Palantir to actually to connect both data sets or to connect both part of businesses. Okay. BP, when they started with Palantir, their objective was to increase and build digital twin around their production operations. But when they decided to pivot towards new energy, yeah, they took Palantir with them. So this is, I think, what people are missing, that once they are in and they show their value, it's very difficult. I mean, companies will push them and they will try to learn more about it, do less of the consulting services part and all that. But when they are in, they can create value like no one else. And that is something. But the challenge is the process for them to get into a company, either via self-service or via sales. Right now, it's struggling. So, in short,
Let me ask you this, Sachin. What's harder, fixing that problem or having the technology that's 10x good as it is to begin with, right? Like, I think
yeah,
we can fix this problem.
So getting the technology that is 10x better is always harder, but it is also not given that they can sort the sales channel until unless they sort some of the cultural issues within the company. Because if issues exist, that means there are some reasons they acknowledge it, but they need to address it. Okay, it's not as hard as building a 10x better product, but it is still a hard problem.
I would agree.
All right, let's end it off today with one question. If you had a decent amount of dry powder sitting on the sidelines, what is one stock, just like a 2-sentence explanation for why, that you would go all in on at these prices right now outside of Palantir?
TQQQ. I'm waiting.
TQQQ, the index?
Oh yeah, dude, it's been decimated. And the thing is, the value proposition for it going much higher is a lot more because all the survivors are going to be left in TQQ, right? At the same time, all the recovery is going to be there. So if you're triple leverage going higher, you end up benefiting a lot. You look at TQQQ going back all the way to 2008. It's if you got in at the right time, you 10x your money quicker than you could believe. So right now, it's down 70% from all-time highs, but that's because it's leveraged to go down really fast. The thing is, though, if you apply the principle of elevators versus escalators, what we're starting to see is that the elevator is slowing down, and we may be entering a point of the elevator is slowing down, and we may end up going into the escalator mode. So if we're in escalator mode and you're triple leverage, that means you'll be going up really, really fast, right? So if I had extra dry powder, and I do have extra dry powder, which I am going to invest in TQQQ, but I'm going to wait until I see some bankruptcies in the tech side that pretty much flush out all these extra investment that's been out there. And I'm also going to be waiting until gas prices come down, because I think right now majority of the inflation is because of all the increase in gas prices. So with that in mind, we need the Fed to kind of slow down with the interest rate rises. And the only thing that's going to slow the Fed down from raising interest rates higher is inflation comes down. So how do you control inflation? If energy comes down, inflation comes down, and then tech will start rallying again, because now the expectation of higher interest rates in the future will start to diminish. So that's what I would say. If I would say the canary in the coal mine for me right now is $3.50 in gas prices. The minute I see $3.50, which is a much more rational amount per gallon on even like a regular unleaded gasoline, that'll be the trigger where I just buy some TQQQ.
Okay, let's do Dom, then Sachin.
So we have to buy right now, right? That's what you're saying. We have to pick one
stock right now that you would really want to put a lot.
Yeah, I would have to go with Tesla. And the reason I would go with Tesla, here's why.
Interesting.
if I was holding this for 20 years, which I plan on doing on most of my investments, and you're saying you're strong arming me to pick, it's either that or Nvidia, because both of those I feel have technology differences that are unmatched right now and will continue to innovate and be unmatched. And I feel more comfortable because there's less risk, in my opinion.
Okay, Sachin?
I think for me, and like Chris, I have some dry powder sitting as well. If I have to buy one stock today, and that is not Palantir, it is Atai. I think I find, but you need to understand that psychedelics is something which is not everyone's cup of tea.
What's the
And
ticker symbol on that?
psychedelics? So the it's Atai Life Sciences. The ticker is ATAI. Okay, because the company got decimated with a poorly timed IPO, but to me, it's a quality company. I mean, it is one of the Thiel's investment, and I think it has gone too cheap than it should have gone at this particular. Have big investors like Christian Wangenmeyer and Peter Thiel. This is a company I'll go with. It's not an easy investment, let me tell you guys, and there is a lot of uncertainty at this point how psychedelics will turn out. So everybody has a different view about it. What I know and what view I have, I'll go on Atai than any other company at this particular point outside Palantir.
I might buy some Epsilera too. Epsilera is also one of those things, but Epsilera is going to be it's going to be a longer hold. But
Yeah.
dude, their CEO is buying so much stock right now. It's crazy. And that's why they're rallying. They're just remember this. Anytime you see a CEO buy a stock or sell a stock, there's 1,000 reasons why they sell stocks. There's only one reason why they buy.
If I had to pick one undervalued asset that I would go all in on, my choice would be investing in
Roku.
No. Roku's man, it went below 80 this week. I would invest in myself. All right, and that's the podcast for this week. We hoped you guys, but to be honest, I've heard a lot of people say this, invest in yourself, invest in your skills, double your income, or just like try to find ways to make more income. I think that's obviously a good strategy, and you're holding cash on the side. So, maybe we can get into better prices. On my morning live streams every day, I open the market. A lot of people have been saying, why aren't you buying? Why aren't you DCAing? And I'm like, because I don't think the pain is done. And they're like, so you're trying to time the market. I'm like, this is not timing. This is not what Kevin did in January where he takes his whole portfolio. This is more like there is zero catalyst for this to go up. I don't know why I would even DCA in this moment. And it's not that it's wrong to DCA. Just like I don't have all the cash in the world. I would like to get into some better prices.
Well said.
Yeah, so I agree with your original point in the beginning. It's like you don't have to feel anxious to buy right now.
I have one question. If you guys have 5 minutes, just to get an idea. What's your opinion on housing in the United States? I feel like right now we're overvalued. Huh?
It's gonna bust. We're gonna reach a point where it's gonna.
I agree. I mean, I was reading some of the. I have some of the data and charts I can send you later on Twitter. I mean, housing. So it was a lot of people were flipping their housing and property so much. People are having so many loans because. I mean, it was crazy. And now the interest rate going up, they cannot cater. Like everybody I know is like holding like 4 properties. And everybody, most of these people are worried about the interest rate going up. Housing has to go bust, man. There is no other way. Like housing bust is one of, like I said, the energy has to come down, the housing has to, and a lot of people have to lose the job. When we talk about recession is just not just a word. I mean, it comes with consequences. And if it is coming, then this is what we are going to see. For me, one of the trigger point I have is, I'm not very comfortable a lot of time sharing it, but I prefer to watch interest rate of Swiss banks. Swiss banks normally doesn't raise interest rate. They have recently did 50 BPS. Okay, I mean, Swiss franc is supposed to be one of the safest currency in the world. And normally when they raise the interest rate, the idea is to protect it against some of the strong currency. Okay, so how Swiss bank is going to monitor and increase interest rate, that's going to be a big sign for me. Like Chris said, until and unless inflation is near or lower than interest rate, I'm not deploying any cash. Okay, I don't think we are done. We are seeing the symptoms getting worse. we are not seeing any solution actually being deployed. Actually, there is no solution being deployed by anyone at this point of time. We are, right now the situations are only worsening, so I'm not going to deploy any of my cash at this particular point.
So Sachin, if you don't buy Palantir right now, do you not have conviction around Palantir?
No, so my situation is a bit different. I don't have a regular job. The reason I'm not deploying cash is because I have to ensure that I have a venture to fund, and I have to ensure the liquidity. That means I don't.
I understand your situation. Someone in the comments is saying if you are not buying Palantir right now, you have no conviction if you bought it over 15. I think that's a silly.
No, I bought it at 20, 22.
25% of my equity is invested in Palantir. And if still someone thinks I don't have conviction, yeah, I mean, I don't control anybody's thought.
Yeah, everyone has an opinion.
Palantir, you can call me a Palantir bear. I don't care.
If anyone's a Palantir bear, it's Chris. So.
No. I've just been DCAing. I told you, even when Sachin said I'm going all in, what did I say? No, I'm just going to DCA because I know my mindset. The way that my mind works is, right now, Palantir being down at $7, I'm still happy. Even though I'm down in my portfolio, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting it at a discount, So the way that you buy anything is you have to use it as a mindset. If you know that you're one of those people that checks their portfolio and you see that huge red, it's going to drive you nuts. So you know what? I decided, look, I believe in Palantir. I like the technology. I like the management team. I like the thing. So guess what I'm doing? DCA. That's it. No, nothing else. I don't look at it. I have a fixed amount of money that's just going to go and buy the shares at whatever the hell the price is at the time. Whether it's at 25 or 7, it's the same thing. The one good thing is that once in a while when I do check and my average, every time I look at my average, it's going down faster and faster and faster, which is good. All right. But like I said, if it turns $30, I'm going to sell tomorrow.
All right. That's it for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We gave you a decently long episode because we missed last week, so we'll all be here next week and continuing to do the work that we need to do, which is cover Palantir for all the bag holders at Friday night that need to watch this.
Shabario said this. These bags are getting heavy, bro. We're holding these bags. They're getting heavy.
They're getting heavy.
Thanks for everyone watching.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Take care.
And the broadcast.